This is the first topic we're going to cover this morning is the carnivore diet, because there's enough interest in that it is worth discussing and talking about. And we'll talk a bit about the keto and maybe some other things in there as well, because I know that it's a bit like, what the fuck? It's weird. I get that it's really weird, and I get that it's kind of in opposition to everything that we've been told is the right thing to do. And just a disclaimer, I am not saying that you guys need to go carnivore. I'm not saying that that's like the way or how it should be done, or that that's the spiritual diet or anything like that. I'm just presenting you with the facts and my experience, and then it's entirely up to you guys what you do with that. I'm here to support you no matter what the fuck it is that you choose. And no matter what the fuck it is that you choose, I will always help you, and Jenna will always help you, and the other naturopaths here will hopefully always help you to just live the best fucking version of that and to find the best way for you to do whatever it is that you feel is right for you. So, the carnivore diet is exactly what it fucking sounds like. You eat like a fucking animal, like an apex predator. So, it's consuming just animal products. And there are different degrees within the carnivore diet thing. There's the lion diet, which is very extreme, where all you consume is beef, salt, and water. Lamb can be involved in that as well. It's the four-stomached animals. And then you've got, I guess, everything else, which is just animal products in general. And then there's some leeway in that. And then you choose how extreme or where you sit in that bandwidth, depending on what you're working with. So like if you were in a health crisis and nothing that you did was solving your problems, or you had cancer, or you were dying or on your deathbed or whatever, then you would go that more extreme way, which is the lion diet, which would just be beef, salt, and water, because that would give your body the best opportunity to heal. But as a kind of general thing, you can kind of just go more for the animal products as a whole. So what Michael and I are doing is the carnivore diet that includes all animal products. So what that means is that what's available to us is beef, lamb, but I hate lamb, chicken, fish. What are the other animals? Well, there's eggs, we've pork.
Dairy?
Yes, dairy. We'll talk about dairy because that's part of it.
Fish?
Yeah, fish, definitely. The animal products. And that's it. That's what you eat. And you cut out all plants. It's a 0 sugar, 0 fiber, 0 carbohydrate diet. And it sounds horrendous, and I get it. I get that it sounds horrendous, but honestly, I'll talk about it. Your body switches into an entirely different mode, and you don't miss sugar, carbohydrates, fiber. It's fine that stuff isn't included and that it's not there. But you got to make the switch, and you got to get through all the mental blocks. So the way that we came across this is Michael sent me a clip of Jordan Peterson talking about how he's on the lion diet. He just eats beef, salt, and water because him and his family have horrendous autoimmune conditions, and like his daughter was having fucking joint replacements at 16 and awful, like they were going to die with it basically. And that's the only thing that they could find that helped them. And I was like, what the fuck? Because Dallas had come to me and he had gone carnivore months before this, and I was like, Dallas, you are going to die. Stop it right now, because you are going to drop dead from a heart attack any fucking time. And so I'm sorry, Dallas, but I got him off the carnivore diet because I was horrified. And then when Michael sent me this clip of Jordan Peterson, I was horrified again. But I wanted to be open, and I wanted to understand what the fuck was going on, because what I did is I started reading the comments underneath, and every single person who had gone carnivore or lion was describing these like impossible experiences, these cures. They were healing themselves of all sorts of things. They were having these experiences that are like, that's not humanly possible. And it's stuff that I've seen in my clinic and that I've studied as part of my degree, where it's like, there's not much that you can do. That's kind of it, that some of these things are permanent and you can't really heal from them or recover from them. So I was really interested because I was seeing people's stories of them just miraculously, almost miraculously healing themselves of all of this stuff that I have seen, that I have really struggled with clients, because it's like, no matter what I do, we can't quite hit that thing on the head and can't quite shift it. All we can do is manage it.
So what kind of things was it? Just out of curiosity.
All sorts of things, like autoimmune stuff. There's one story that I read of this man who was like a 76-year-old who had brain cancer, and he's on his deathbed, and the doctors are saying, any day now you're going to die, and there's nothing we can do. And then he went on the Lion diet, and he's like 85 now, and he's thriving and working out and healthy and no cancer. It's like reversals of life or death kind of situations. But people healing their hormones, women who have gone through menopause who start menstruating again, and not that you have to reverse menopause or start menstruating again, but it's like all of this stuff that's just healing and repairing and reversing. And I was like, well, as horrendous as it sounds, there must be something in this. Like, there's some reason that these people are having these awesome experiences and no one is sharing that they went on the carnivore diet and fucking blew up or developed autoimmune conditions or whatever. They're reversing this stuff. So I put all my horror aside and I went, all right, show me. I want to know, I want to understand. Because I've also been working like around the clock with Michael for fucking years with all of his health issues. And you guys know how much he struggled with his health issues. And I've kind of done everything that is available to me that was currently in my toolbox. And we've tried all sorts of stuff, and some things would get better a little bit or alleviate a bit, but it was like nothing was really helping him to have the shifts. Nothing was shifting the weight. Nothing could stop him from fucking coughing. Do you guys remember?
Yes.
Constant, literally constant. So I was interested for me, interested for you guys, interested for him, just kind of interested in general. So I managed to put my horrors aside and I asked my body to show me. So rather than diving into all the science of it and watching lots of YouTube videos and seeing what the other doctors are saying, rather than going down that road, I just went to my body, all right, you got to show me how the fuck this works, because I can't understand it and I'm horrified by it. And that's how I've done everything. That's how I got through my degree. I was like learning about how the liver works and different systems in the body works. And I was like, I can't fucking rote learn that shit. So I just go, all right, show me. And then my body would go bloom, bloom, and kind of show me how these processes happen in the body and extrapolate things out for me. So I've got a good relationship with my body where it communicates with me in that way. So that's kind of what I did. Hands off, fucking show me. If there's something to this, show me what it is. And my body's like, ooh. And my body was really excited about it. I was horrified, but my body's like, well, now that you are, settle in, baby. And it was like, I think it must have been about a week where I just sat with it and I just left it. And I just let my body show me and let myself kind of understand the processes. And what I came to understand, what my body showed me, is like, there's two modes that the body can function in. Two entirely different modes. And in the current Western way of eating, the mode that we're running in is, it's like storage mode is what I'm going to call it. There's storage mode and there's burning mode. And the Western diet is very geared around storage. So the way that we're eating is we're consuming foods that are converted into sugars, is glucose, carbohydrates, and like pretty much everything in the Western diet, apart from the fats and the proteins themselves, are converted into sugar, converted into glucose. So what happens is you eat, your insulin levels spike, your blood sugar levels spike, your cells open to receive glucose, and then your cells use glucose for the energy that they need, and then any excess glucose is stored in the fat cells in the body to be used later. It's never used later because we're always in fucking storage mode. So that's the way that we're eating. That's what our diet is about. You put in, you use a bit, you store the rest for later. You put in, spike, use a bit, store the rest for later. So we're in this kind of storage mode thing where we're holding on to stuff, and in storage mode, the way that your body uses fat is very, very different to when you're in burning mode. So when you're in storage mode, your body kind of uses fat as a storage system. It's a way to transport glucose around the body to the cells where it needs to be used. And it's a way to store excess glucose. And it's also a way to store any toxins or anything else that's in the food that is a part of your body attempting to maintain homeostasis. Because if you're eating toxic shit all the time, the only way that you don't die every time you eat toxic shit is if your body has kind of like a memory of those toxins in it. So when you're eating toxic stuff, and of course this makes sense, your body takes a little bit of it and it stores it in your own tissues so that your immune system doesn't have a hyperactive response to that stuff when you consume it through your diet. Otherwise, you'd be fucked all the time with all the toxins that I'm going to expose to you that you're consuming constantly. So our fat cells are used for that, storing little snapshots and little bits and parts of different toxins and things so that your body recognizes it as something that's not going to kill you and doesn't have an overreactive response to the foods that you're eating. And this, by the way, is a big thing in autoimmunity. A big cause of it is that overreaction, the body's response to toxins, but those toxins are also stored in your fucking tissues, so the immune system's attacking your own tissues. That's one part of it, and that can be one cause of autoimmunity. Just as a side note while we're there. So the way that you use fat when you're in storage mode is very different. Fat isn't seen as a source of fuel, it's seen as something that is used in the body to store shit and to transport shit. And that's basically it. But there's this other mode that my body started to show me that we can exist in, which is the burning mode. And what happens in burning mode is that you make the switch, your body literally biologically makes the switch from seeing fat as being something that is used for other shit, for transportation and for storage, into recognizing fat as being a source of fuel, the source of fuel, the ideal source of fuel. So when you remove carbohydrates and you remove sugars and you remove all of those things that are causing those insulin spikes and drops, and you don't have the glucose coursing around in your body, at first your cells are like, what the fuck? Our energy source has been taken from us. But eventually, if you keep that energy source removed, the body starts looking for energy somewhere else. And then the body very naturally makes this switch to recognizing fat as being a source of fuel. And we're told that fat makes you fat, but hopefully from what I've just described to you, you guys are understanding that it's the glucose that makes you fat. It's not the fat. But there's been this huge fucking marketing thing, especially through the last century, 50s, 60s, 70s, that got to avoid fat at all costs because it's going to make you fat. Well, look how fucking fat all those people are. All the ones that were avoiding fat, they got fat. Because they were seeing the culprit as being the wrong thing. So, body makes switch to recognizing fat as being a source of fuel. What do you think happens? Fat becomes a source of fuel. You stop being dependent on the glucose, you stop being dependent on those peaks and that constant intake and storage, and your body just goes, I can run completely on fat. Your body can run completely on fat. All of the fuel that you need is in fat. And your body runs better on fat because you're not going up and down. You're not peaking and dropping. Your cells aren't having to open to receive the glucose. The insulin levels aren't coming up. All of those extra kind of bodily processes aren't happening. What's happening is fat is going in. The liver is breaking it down and turning it into ketones, which smell delicious. And it's being used immediately as a source of fuel. And that is ideally what our bodies run on. These things, your brains, your entire nervous system, that don't fucking run on glucose. And you've all seen those scans of how consuming sugar changes the way that the brain looks and the way that the brain functions, and not in an ideal way. It's because your brain is meant to run on fat. Your brain runs on cholesterol. So when you're eating fat and you're getting all of your fuel, all of your energy from fat, then your brain's being fed in the way that it's meant to be fed. Your cells are being fed in the way that they're meant to be fed. The mitochondria in the cells start to heal and repair themselves. So there's all this extra energy. There's all this extra electrical activity that can happen in the body. There's all this extra plasticity. There's all this healing that happens because the fat is able to fuel the body in the way that it was intended. And our bodies are built to run on fat. We've done ourselves a great disservice by forcing our bodies to run on glucose and switching into that other mode. So it's like the ideal mode, the ideal source of fuel for the body. So on the carnivore diet, you're getting all of your energy from fat, and basically all you're consuming is fat and protein. So the fat is your energy, and the protein, all of the protein that you're eating is being used to build tissue, to build cells. So there's this huge amount of healing and repair that can happen at a massively increased rate because the protein is the building blocks for the body. So you've got fat as the fuel that runs the body, and you've got protein as the building blocks for the body. So the cell integrity, the repair that can happen, all sorts of stuff starts to reverse and to heal and to repair itself because of the amount of protein that's going in. But what about all the vitamins and the minerals in the plants? Well, we will fucking get there. Because all of the vitamins and the minerals that you need are plentiful in the animal products. They're all there and they're all present. And they're in the amounts that you need. And the amounts of these vitamins and minerals that you need changes when you switch to this other mode as well. Because there's a lot, when you're not in burning mode and you're in storage mode, there's a lot of inflammation that's happening in the body. There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of extra processes that are running. There's an enormous amount of strain on the system that isn't there when you're in burning mode. So your requirement for things like vitamin C and other things becomes so much more because your need for those antioxidant properties and all of those other things is more because of all of the damage that you're having to reverse at the same time. So your need for those things becomes less when your body's just running smoothly and the cogs are just turning and things are functioning the way that they're meant to be functioning. And when you're actually absorbing all of the nutrients that are going into your body through your diet. And that's a big difference between these ways of eating as well. So just quickly before we get onto that, the ketogenic diet will also switch you into fat burning mode. So the ketogenic diet is a way of switching you out of storage mode and into fat burning mode in the way that I have just described. So if you just want to be in that burning mode, the ketogenic diet is sufficient for that. The carnivore diet will do it, so will the keto diet. Just so you guys know. But we're about to take it further, and I'm about to tell you why carnivore over keto. But again, It's up to you and your body and how you feel and what works best for you. So both are an option here. Here are your options. Okay. Bless me, Father, for I am about to sin, and forgive me, health nuts and naturopaths, for I am about to offend thee. So, why carnivore if keto is enough to keep you in fat burning mode? Well, my friends, plants are packed full of phytotoxins. They're packed full of phytochemicals, and some of those phytochemicals are beneficial, but they are jam-packed full of phytotoxins. And we'll go more into that. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, because I will also tell you why I still believe in plants as medicine, so like the herbal medicine, but we will get to that, and there is a place for that. But for now, I want to shock your little brains and make you feel really uncomfortable by telling you all of the bad shit that's in the plants that you're eating. And this is no secret. The phytotoxic components of plant foods are no fucking secret. When I was going through my degree, in all of the nutrition subjects that we did, it's like, here's the good stuff that's in the plant foods and here's all the shit that's in the plant foods. We know about this. It is fact. The literature is there. In any plant food that you come across, there'll be a list of like hundreds of phytotoxins that are contained in those plant foods as well. We know about this. You guys might not know about this, but us who are trained in it, we know. It's part of our studies. We understand, we're told that all of these toxic components of the plants are there. And when you think about it, it makes sense. Anything that's alive wants to stay alive, right? So animals stay alive by defending themselves in nature. They can move, they can run, they can fight. That's the way that they keep themselves alive. We know that there are critters out there that have toxins that they excrete and they put out, or they're poisonous, so that things don't eat them, so that they can stay alive, so they can defend themselves. It's their defense mechanism. I am so fucking sorry, but plants are doing the same thing. They don't want to die. They don't want to be eaten. They don't want their fruits that are literally them attempting to reproduce themselves to be taken by some animal or some person and be consumed. They want to pass on their genetics. They want to reproduce. They want to stay alive. They want to thrive. They don't see themselves as being food. They see themselves as being kind of entities in their own right that have a right to live and have a right to thrive. So how can a plant that can't run away or defend itself, just got a really funny image of veggie patches defending themselves. How do they defend themselves? They fill themselves with toxic components that make them poisonous to the ones that would normally eat them, to deter them. So there are toxins, there are chemicals in all plants geared around defending that plant so that it can actually survive and it can thrive in the environment. And that is the same for all plants. Why do you think that the ones that you like to munch on are any different to other plants out in the wild that are defending themselves with poisons and toxins? It's the same for all plants. There aren't friendly plants that are just like, oh yes, I'm just delicious and I just trust that the universe will let me thrive, because they'll get gobbled up and they won't survive. They have to have a way to defend themselves. So, with that uncomfortable thing swallowed, again, we know about this. We know about the toxic load of plants. And even in my studies of nutrition, it's like there's this microscopic amount of this vitamin and this mineral and this vitamin in this plant food. There's all this other shit that the body can't break down and that actually blocks and stops the body's ability to absorb that microscopic amount of that trace nutrient that's in that plant. So how do we deal with that? We just eat more of that fucking plant to increase the chances of us absorbing any amount of the nutrient that's present in that plant. And that's why there's this push to just have more and more and more and more of it, because we know that the amount of like the iron that you can absorb from the spinach that you're eating is like 2% of the iron that's actually available. And there's not that much iron available because there are toxic compounds in that plant that are blocking your body's ability to actually absorb the nutrients that are present in that plant. And we know about this too. We know that there are vitamins that literally contradict each other. It's like, don't eat this food with this food, because if you do, then this food's going to block the absorption of that food. It's a fucking minefield. I'm telling you, it's a minefield. So there's all sorts of stuff that you're not meant to eat together, but you have to make sure that you do get it, because there's a little bit of something in there that your body needs, and you got to increase your body's chance of actually absorbing that thing that's in that thing. And it's horrible, it's confusing, and it's hectic. And even while I was studying it, I was like, this is bullshit. It's like no one has the answer. And I tried everything when I was going through my degree. You guys know I was vegetarian for a very long time. I tried the raw vegan thing. I tried everything. And on all of it, I felt like shit. And I knew too much as well. So it was kind of like, I know how much I need of all of these different things. So I could do it properly too. It was like, don't eat that food with that food, but eat that with that, and you've got to combine these different things so you can get a complete fucking protein from your plant sources, and there's so much in it, and it's so confusing, and it's so intense, and you end up feeling like shit anyway. I felt like shit. I started to develop unhealthy stuff. So for any of you who have worked with me as a naturopath, you know that I've never been hardcore on all of that dietary stuff where it's like, don't have this, but have this, and blah, 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 because I ended up coming to the conclusion that it's all bullshit. And the only things that I understood as actually being important and being significant in all of my studies of nutrition are fat and protein. And you guys will know that too, anyone that's worked with me. It's like, make sure you get enough fat, eat your fucking avocados, and make sure you're getting enough protein at each meal. They were the only two things that I could rely on as being definite and things that had to be done, because they are important, and I saw the evidence for that. And then all the other stuff, it's just like in moderation. Eat what makes you feel good. Make sure you're in love with your food, because the most important thing is that you love what you're eating, because I know that you're only going to actually absorb about this much of what it is that you're eating, and I know that the foods that you're eating are conflicting with each other, and you're not going to be getting that much out of it anyway. So that's why the advice that I've given you guys that have worked with me is love what you are eating and keep it as close to nature as possible. Make sure you have your fats, make sure you have your proteins, because all of that other stuff, I wasn't satisfied with it. I wasn't happy with it. I'd seen that it doesn't work, and I knew too much about the science. And I know how much hard work you have to put into preparing a food to reduce the toxic load, to increase the chances of absorption, and then you have to be constantly managing your gut so that you can actually absorb, and you can actually digest, and you can actually break down, and it's like too much. Just be in love with what you're eating. So I ended up not even being hardcore about not having sugar and stuff like that, because to me it's like, it's all the fucking same. It's all going to get turned into fucking glucose. And I always tried to eat close to nature, don't get me wrong. I haven't been a unhealthy eater, because again, I know too much, but I've always been very relaxed about it and very open with the way that you guys eat, because there are no answers. I thought there were no answers. So for me, I was already very discontent with the diet and the superfood diets and the health nut diets and all of that, because to me, I knew too much. And it was all conflicting, and you don't see results from it anyway. So my body started to show me this, the burning mode thing. And for the first time in my life, I went, oh my God, it's horrifying, but something actually makes sense. I can actually understand it. I know too much, but it fits in with all of the information that I have. And my naturopathic training actually allowed me to see that, oh yeah, there is actually something in this. This is actually legit. I can actually understand those processes. I can feel those processes. I can make sense of this. So I've had to like shelve everything that I thought I knew to explore this and to understand this. And just another thing, so one of the phytotoxins that are really being touted as being terrible for the body is oxalates. And the oxalate content in plant foods is enormous, like huge. And oxalates are basically like a salt compound that bind to minerals in the body and block your body's absorption of those minerals. So you can't uptake the minerals, it blocks the absorption of nutrients, and oxalates are in super, super, super high content in pretty much all plant foods, but some plant foods even more specifically than others. So like ideally you want to get your oxalate intake below 200 milligrams a day, which is a very small amount. On the carnivore diet, your oxalate intake is 0. You're not taking in those toxic compounds. They're just not there. They've been broken down already by the animal that was actually designed to eat those oxalate-rich foods. So they're not present in the food that you're eating. So you want that oxalate level to be down below 200 milligrams to reduce and reverse all sorts of states of inflammation, to increase your body's ability to absorb nutrients, but also so that your body isn't storing all of these toxins and literally binding up the minerals and the vitamins that are going into your body. So below 200 milligrams a day, ideally. 1 cup of raw spinach has 665 milligrams of oxalates in it. And then people wonder why they're not absorbing any of the minerals that are present in the foods that they're eating. The mineral content to oxalate content is very, very, very out of proportion on a lot of the nuts and the seeds, but a lot of the foods that you guys love, the oxalate load is enormous. And you don't really realize how full of these toxins you are until you make that switch and the toxins start leaching out of your cells. So there's this thing called oxalate dumping. And that's just one part of it. This is just one phytotoxin. There are hundreds, remember? The lists are enormous. So when you make that switch to burning mode and your cells are like, oh my God, she's not eating that phytotoxic shit anymore, so we don't actually have to store it in our fat cells anymore, and your body starts releasing those toxins, you realize just how much toxic load you've been carrying around in your cells. So they call it oxalate dumping, this specific thing, and people experience all sorts of stuff. Enormous healing, but there's like you feel like shit while you're making the transition, basically, is what I'm trying to say, because your body's dumping a whole bunch of stuff that it's just been storing and holding on to that it doesn't need anymore. So people break out in rashes, you feel lethargic, your guts are playing up. It doesn't have to be that horrendous, and for me it wasn't that horrendous, but it can be like that reversal of symptoms. That's kind of like the phase where a huge amount of that reversal of symptoms happens. So like stuff that you were struggling with when you were a kid, as your body goes through the dumping and the reversal process, you're going to reverse back through all of that shit while you're making the transition. But you got to stick with it. You just got to stay with it. You got to keep going. You got to take care of yourself. You got to be surrounded by ones that are going through a similar thing and let yourself kind of run through that trial period. And that's why I said to you guys that I might do a 30-day challenge where we can all do it together and jump on board, feel like shit together, but get through it together. because by the time you reach that 30-day mark, you should be having an alleviation of some of that stuff. Some of it's a bit more drawn out, but there's like, you realize just how toxic you've been. And immediately you just drop a whole bunch of like the liquid that you've been carrying around in your body as well. It just goes and falls out of you because you don't have to store so much. Your body's not holding on to so much. It's running in real time instead. Food goes in, there's my fat, my protein, all my vitamins and my minerals, and I'm just steady. And you stay steady. Not while you're oxalate dumping, but eventually you do, you steady and you level out. And for me, it was at the 30-day mark that I went, yeah, this is good. I found it. I found my rhythm, I found my flow, and I'm actually starting to feel good. And I did feel good for a bunch of that time in the 30 days, but you have some bad days. And you have some dips, and you just got to accept that that's part of the reversal process and part of the switching over to another mode process. So, phytotoxins, phytochemicals, plants trying to stay alive, that would be why carnivore diet over keto. Some people don't really need that, but like for Michael, he fucking needs that. And a big part of me doing this was my own curiosity and my body telling me that it wanted to do it and it wanted to try. But a big part of it for me as well is supporting Michael on his journey. So I'm like, I'm going to see this fucking through to the end with him. And we're going to get him to the weight where he's happy and get him to a place where he's healthy and strong. And I just get to get healthier and stronger and happier as a result of that process as well. But I'm also at the point where I'm like, I would never go back. I would never go back. It seems insane that you would ever consume carbohydrates and sugars and that you would live in that way. It's like, I feel too fucking good. I feel better than I've ever felt. And again, I've tried everything, guys. Remember, I've tried everything. I've tried all of it. And I feel better than I have ever felt. And it's just getting better. I'm still not at that full reversal of all of those symptoms yet. So it's just going to get fucking better. And again, I'm not saying that you have to do this. I'm just sharing the facts and just sharing the evidence with you. And within 24 hours of Michael going on the carnivore diet, his coughing had reduced by 90%. And now it's just every now and then, if he touches the wrong cat or there's dust around, there'll be a little bit of a cough. But by 90% immediately, that coughing had reduced. So there's so much, there's like an enormous load that the body is having to deal with that's extra on top of absorbing nutrients in the foods that we're eating in our current Western diet. And switching over to this other way, it's just, there's nothing going in that the body isn't ready for. So those plants that are full of the phytotoxins and that are defending themselves, the animals that eat those foods are designed to eat those foods. So like the cow can handle the food that it eats because it's got 4 fucking stomachs. So it's not just digesting that food once. That food's going in, it's being regurgitated, it's going into another stomach where there's a different kind of bacteria present that breaks that food down again. It's being regurgitated, it's being processed again, it's being regurgitated, and eventually turned into something that's actually useful in the body. We don't have 4 stomachs. And we know, so the reason that we hammer plant fibers, the reason that we hammer this thing of you've got to have fiber every day, because I know some of you are like, what the fuck, how do I poo? We'll get to that. The reason that we hammer fiber is because our bodies cannot break it down. Our digestive system is not designed to break down fiber. So basically, fiber goes in and bacteria digests it to a certain degree, but just it comes out the other end. And we're told that that's the only way that you can stay regular. You've got to eat your fiber because it's the only way to bulk up your stool so that you can fucking poo. Otherwise, nothing will come out the other end. So that's why fiber is so heavily pushed on our society, because we can't break it down. There are animals that are designed to eat fiber that actually break fiber down and turn it into nutrients that get absorbed by the body and get used by the body. Cows can do that with their full stomachs. We can't fucking do that. So if you look at our anatomy as well, we're kind of not designed with our one stomach. It's very long, our intestines, but we're not designed and we're not set up to actually absorb all of the nutrients and all of the things that are present in our plant foods, where other animals are, other critters are. They're designed to deal with that toxic load. They can actually do something with it. Not us. All we can do is store those toxins. And they get in the way of absorbing any nutrient content that's present in those foods. So poos. If you're not eating fiber, if you're having a zero fiber diet, there might be the temptation to think that that's going to fuck your guts up, because we're told that's the only way to keep your guts healthy is through the fiber that's present in your food. But it's not the fucking case. And you read these stories of people that have been struggling with IBS and bloating and constipation and diarrhea and diverticulitis and intestinal cancers and all sorts, like anything that you can think of involving the guts, and they go on the carnivore diet and they heal all of that shit. Literally. It reverses that stuff. They see that stuff disappearing because the toxins aren't there, the chemicals aren't there, and they're not putting these harsh fibers through the digestive system that the body can't actually absorb or break down or do anything with. So what ends up happening is that on the carnivore diet, you use everything that goes into your body. So there is very little waste. You're breaking down and you're actually using all of the protein that you're consuming, and you're breaking down and you're actually using and turning into ketones most of the fat that's going into your body. So the way that you poo on the carnivore diet is that you eat a little bit more fat than you actually need. So it's like the only thing that's coming out the other end, because you're absorbing all the vitamins, you're absorbing all of the nutrients, all of those minerals and vitamins that are present in the animal products that you're eating are bioavailable. They are 100% bioavailable. Unlike the spinach where only 2% of it is bioavailable. It's all available. It can all be used. And it's in its ready form. It doesn't have to be transformed into anything. If vitamin C goes in your beef, it is absorbed and used as vitamin C in the body. It doesn't have to be transformed and magicked and run through all of these special processes to become this much bioavailable. That's 100% bioavailability. If you're not mixing it with all the other phytotoxic crap that will block the absorption of those nutrients. So if you're not having it with plant foods, is what I'm saying. And you're not blocking it in other ways. So everything's bioavailable. Everything's actually freely being used by the body. So the only waste that you experience is the excess fat. So remember that when you're in burning mode, your body recognizes fat as being a source of fuel. And you are readily eating fat. Like you are consuming it as you need, and we'll get to that as well. So there's no starvation. So the body's not like, fat is my only source of fuel and I only get fat once a week, so I'm going to store all of the fat and make myself really fat because it's the only way I'm going to have fat available to me. The body's like, fat is a source of fuel and it is readily available and it is being pumped into me, and I have so much of it that I know that I've got it whenever I need it, so I don't have to store it. Your body doesn't hold on to the fat that's going into it. It doesn't have to store it because it knows that you're going to provide it. It knows that fuel is readily available to it. So the poo that you experience is just any excess fat. Your body will extract from your diet the amount of energy that it needs to run all of its processes, to be healthy, to be happy, to give you energy, and then anything that it doesn't need, it doesn't store. And that's what comes out the other end. And as long as you're hydrated, hydration is so fucking important. And I'll just quickly say that like every glucose molecule in your bloodstream holds 3 molecules of water. And those 3 molecules of water hold your electrolytes, basically. If you're not consuming glucose and you're actually consuming salt, then that 1 glucose to 3 water molecules thing isn't happening. So you've got to drink a fucking shitload of water to keep yourself hydrated and to keep yourself flushing and to keep everything moving. But we should be drinking a fucking shitload of water anyway. We shouldn't be storing it and holding it as stuff that makes us look all puffy and inflamed. You should be drinking water as your body needs it to keep things lubricated and to keep things moving. So if you're drinking enough water and you're eating enough fat, going to the toilet is really fucking easy. But you're probably not going to go to the toilet every day because you're not going to be eating enormous amounts of fat beyond what your body needs every day. And I know that that's hard as well because we've been told you have to fucking poo every day or you're going to build up and become toxic. Remember, you aren't consuming the toxins that make you toxic and that can make you sick. In this other mode, it's not the case. So it's okay to not poo for 3 days. Some people do poo every day. Some people poo once a week. But it's easy. It passes through. You don't get bloated. You don't get gassy. You're not farting. You're not burping. You're not in pain. You're not puffy. You're not blocked up. You're not constipated. You just don't need to go. And then when you do need to go, you sit down and it comes out and you're empty. Kind of like the way that it's meant to be. So it's different, and it's a different kind of mindset, a different kind of mentality, and some of it can be kind of squirmish and difficult to digest because it's so in opposition to so much of what we've been taught. And there's like a whole bunch of stuff about why that information came out in the first place and who was funding it and religions and all sorts of stuff in that you guys could go ahead and explore on your own. I'm not going to go into that right now. But it is an entirely different mode. You feel like a different kind of human. I feel like a different kind of human. I feel like a different kind of creature because my body in every single way is functioning differently to how it was functioning before. Everything changes. Even the way your neurons fire, all of it, it all changes. Your digestion, neurons, the blood, the energy levels, the way your brain works, the way that your cells are, the way that your body works with water and food and all of it, it all changes, it all switches over. And to me, it feels like the ideal way to function. There was something just before I said that we would get to. Can anyone remember what it was? Because I've forgotten.
Vitamins.
What did you say?
Vitamins and minerals. Is it that one? It's already in the
We did that. What did you say?
How much?
How much what?
Like how much you got to eat and not be full.
Oh, yes, because that's an important part of it too. I know that it can seem like, and especially for those of you who have done extreme dieting in the past, it can seem like it's going to be an extreme dieting kind of thing, or like it's going to be really hard or really difficult, or like you have to punish yourself. And I've always steered away from that, and I've always encouraged you guys not to do that and not to punish yourselves with your diet. I still stand by, you need to be in love with what you're eating. That is so important. There needs to be love in what you're eating so that you can best absorb it and you can actually turn it into something that's useful in the body. I still stand by that, and I don't believe in restrictive dieting. Says I, that's on the carnivore diet. Seriously though, it's difficult to explain until you've experienced it, but what ends up happening is that you end up not wanting those foods that you feel like you're going to really miss. And it's different for everyone, especially people who have been really fat deprived. For me, I wasn't fat deprived going into this or protein deprived because I'd always prioritized fat. I always understood how important it was. So for me, making the transition from running on glucose to running on fat wasn't a huge fucking stretch for my body, but for some of you, it would be. And for Michael, it was a big stretch. It was a big transition because you've been running on glucose for so long. And so it can seem like it would be impossible to give those foods up. But once you make that transition, that ends up being what your body wants. Those animal foods and the fat as a source of fuel ends up being what the body craves for and what the body wants and what it calls out for, because that's where it thrives. That's what it ends up communicating with you about. It can be difficult when you're first making that transition, and there needs to be a bit of an act of will, because your body is going to feel like you are depriving it of fuel, basically, when you first remove those sugars, especially if you're making the transition to fat and that's a new thing for you. The body's going to go, I have no energy. What the fuck? And it's going to go, give me carbohydrates, give me sugars, give me those things that give me that rush. And there may be a bit of a panic there. But if you can see that through to its end and show your body the fat as a new source of fuel, then eventually it does. It just makes that transition, and that ends up being what it calls out for when it needs nutrients. So for me, I'm not punishing my body in any fucking way. Remember, my body wanted this. I was the one with concerns. My body was the one that was like, let's fucking do it. Like, you're fucking crazy, man. And my body is a bit crazy, but that's okay. And the body does make that switch. It's capable of making that switch. So it's not a restrictive diet. It is restrictive in that you are cutting a bunch of shit out, but it's not a punishing diet. It's all about partnering with the body and discovering what the body actually needs. And it's an intuitive way of eating. There is no calorie counting. Fuck calories. You got to get rid of that mindset. There's no calorie counting. There's no calorie restriction. There's no you have to eat this many times a day, or you have to fast for this long every day, though fasting can and will naturally be part of it because that ends up being what your body wants. There's none of that. You're doing away with all of that dieting mentality. You got to be done with all of that in order for this to actually work. It's more like, I'm going to partner with you and we're going to go on this journey together and we're going to discover where we fucking thrive. I'm going to get out of your way so that you can show me what it is that you need so that you can function optimally. And it's a partnering thing. You've got to be so in tune with yourself, so clued in with your body, because there are subtleties in that. It sounds like you're limiting what you're eating to this, but there are so many subtleties and variations in that you have to be aware of, and you have to be picking up, and you have to be communicating with your body about. So for me, this hasn't been a, you're naughty, get in line, stop craving that fucking shit. None of that. It's been a partnering. I'm more deeply connected with my body. I'm listening to my body. I'm in tune with my body. I'm understanding what my body's telling me even more than I was before, and my body is working with me in a more harmonious way as well. And that's what it's all about. For me, that's always what it's about. It's getting in touch with yourself. It's connecting with yourself. It's being in flow with yourself. And for all of you, that's going to look and feel a little bit different. I'm at a point now where I've found what's working really well for me, and we can talk a bit more about that as well. But I had to find that. And what I eat in a day is different to what Michael eats in a day. What I eat in a day is very different to what any one of you would eat in a day. The same kinds of things, and I'd like to give you ideas of how and what to eat, and I will tell you how and what I eat and show that to you if you're interested. But it's all about getting in flow and getting back in touch with your own body. And the discarding of all of these external ideas and external pressures is enormous. It's so freeing to break free of all of the thou shalt and thou shalt not, and this is the way that you should, and this is the way that you shouldn't, and that's wrong, and this is good, and even breaking free of the way that we like read blood results and all of that stuff. You get to break free of that. And you don't realize how restricted and controlled and limited you are by all of that stuff until you start breaking free of that. And you start letting that go, and you go on this journey with your own body to discover what actually works best for it. Because who here is fucking confused by all the information out there? You want to do good, you want to do right, you want to be healthy, but like it's all contradicting. It's all in opposition. And someone will say that something is going to be the cure-all, and someone else will say it's going to be the thing that kills you. And it's kind of the same with the carnivore diet. And you've got to find where you sit in that spectrum and what works for you, and doing away with that. And it can feed into doing away with all of that kind of religious mentality and all the other thou shalts and shalt nots on other levels as well. And it can be this huge fucking trippy, broad, multi-dimensional journey if you let it be. And for me, it's been a very, very, very rewarding one. Confusing and confronting at times, but rewarding. So the way that you eat on the carnivore diet is like, if you're hungry, you eat. And when you eat until you are fucking full, like until you're at that point where it's like, I could not fit another mouthful in or I would explode. Or if your food starts tasting bad. So when you're hungry, it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is the best steak I've ever fucking had. Literally, I'm like, you guys would be horrified if you saw me eating half a chicken by myself. And that's what it's like when you're ready for it. Your body's like, you start thinking about it. You start thinking about how you're going to cook your steak, or what you're going to have with your steak, or, oh, that chicken smells so good. And you start thinking about it. And so when that happens, it's like, that's the time that you eat. And you eat until your body goes, oh, I couldn't fit another mouthful in, or, oh, that steak's starting to taste a bit horrendous. You put it down, you've had enough. Your body's telling you, I'm hungry now, I'm full now. That's it. It's that fucking simple. And then you don't eat again. You don't even think about food again until your body's ready to eat again. So there's no, you have to eat breakfast, you have to eat lunch, or you have to skip dinner, or any of that shit. It's like, you're hungry, you fucking eat, baby. You're full, you stop eating. You're hungry again, you eat. And it's getting in flow and in touch with yourself in that way, and in doing away with all of that other stuff. If you're not hungry, don't eat. If you're hungry, eat. It's very, 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 very simple out in there. And you just find what works for you. Some people really fucking need breakfast. It's fucking great, have your fucking breakfast. Some people don't want to have dinner. There are no rules, except what you can eat. But again, they end up being the foods that your body craves. So my body, when it needs energy, it's like, give me that fucking fat. So that's what I crave. That's what I want. Give me that protein. That's what I crave. That's what I want.
Could be an interesting Christmas dinner this year.
Yeah. Viking style.
Salt.
Salt, yes. Salt is important. The salt is important. And again, that's different for everyone. Like for me, I've always had an issue with mineral balance in my body. And for ones like us that work with more energy, minerals can be an issue. We tend to burn through them quicker than the average person does. So salt is important. And the only thing that you have to add into your diet, the only thing that you have to supplement is electrolytes. Because you don't have those 3 water molecules to every glucose molecule, you only have kind of the water that's present in your body at the time. then you have to substitute with electrolytes. Some people come off that. Some people need it more. Some people say you don't need it. For me, and especially in the transition, I need those electrolytes because I just fucking burned through my minerals. That's a big thing for me with the energy work that I do. So you'd find where that is for you, because our water used to run through mineral creeks. Our water used to be full of minerals. It used to have the electrolyte content in it, but our water is stripped of all of that now. So you do have to add that in. So when you're not consuming glucose, your blood volume drops. So a lot of what's making up your blood volume is those glucose molecules that are carrying water molecules around as well. So no carbohydrates and no sugars means that your blood volume will drop. Your body will adapt to that and will build things like iron and other things that will build that blood volume back up. All that strengthening, revitalizing kind of stuff. But especially in that transition, you need to be adding electrolytes in so that the water content in your blood stays up at a kind of normal, relatively normal level. You'll feel lethargic. You'll have that low blood pressure kind of feeling if you don't. So like for me, I still take electrolytes every day because for me, that's really important, and that's like something I've always been one of those people, like a lot of you, that's low blood pressure, low thyroid function, low iron levels, heart rate really, really low, like down at 43, and really low and slow kind of thing. So for me, it's brought all of those levels up being on this diet. Michael is the opposite to that. He's always had very high blood pressure, high heart rate, and like very full, more of that kind of powerful thing. And like Dallas is a bit like that as well, where it's like everything's high. And for some of you, you're more, I think it's like a thing between the power and the receptivity thing. It's like if you're more power oriented, or like you're really pissed off or angry or ferocious or more fierce in kind of your contact with life, then you tend to be more high blood pressure, high heart rate, powerful heart rate, and that's more the way that things go. I've been the other way. So for Michael, I've seen his fucking blood pressure drop from like 150 over 110 sometimes to like 110 over 70. It just brought his blood pressure way down and slowed his heart rate way down and just relieved so much of that intensity and so much of that pressure that he was experiencing. For me, I haven't actually taken my blood pressure, but I know my heart rate has come up. And for me, that's a good thing. 43 is too fucking low. So for me now, my heart rate is up. My heart beats more powerfully. I can actually feel it. I feel alive in a different kind of way, and I'm pretty fucking sure that my blood pressure has come up. But for me, that's a really good thing. So it's like it works in the way that's intended. It works in the way that's needed for you. And for me, it's stabilized me and given me more of that oomph and more of that power and that drive. And I've had heart palpitations since starting this shit with you guys as well. It's wreaked havoc on my heart, and I've had like a irregular heartbeat, and my heart's been very dependent on my breath because it's like that power and that drive. That ferocity hasn't been there. Since going on this diet, my heart is perfect. The heart rate is consistent, 0 heart palpitations, none of that breathlessness thing. All of that has stabilized and normalized, because for me, it's been like enabling me to build that intensity and more of that ferocity and more of that kind of masculine kind of quality in my body. It's like it's given me permission to do that. Whereas if you're on the other end of the spectrum, it'll work the other way. So salt, important. I salt the shit out of everything. And actually, we did my blood tests at 3 months, and I put salt on everything. Like, I drink salty water because I fucking love it. It makes me feel good. And my sodium levels were below normal. and way, way lower than they'd ever been. So what the fuck does that tell you about all the sodium shit that's in the other foods that you're eating? I'm eating way more salt than I ever have, but like my body's using it, I guess. So that salt is really important, and the electrolytes are really important, especially for building that blood and getting that power back. But that's all stuff that I would talk to you guys about if you went on that 30-day journey with me, and we would manage that and find what works for you and where the right levels are for you. So salt is life. Salt and water are life. So are fat and protein. So many hands. It's all good. We talk about all this as we go. We won't go into all the specifics because we would never leave. Yes.
Just organ meats.
Yeah, and that's one thing as well. I'll talk about two things here actually. Yes, but you don't need them. So the organ, a lot of people really advocate for eating from the mouth to the anus. Sorry, that sounds so rude. But it's like eat all of the animal, eat everything, consume everything, because that's what we used to do. And this is how we used to eat. This is how our ancestors ate and how they survived ice ages. And what did you say? And the tail. Yeah, mouth to tail. So a lot of people really advocate for the organ meats. You don't need them, but like for me, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with eating the organs. But what I have done is I have a supplement that's capsules that have liver. I've got one that's just liver, like really good quality beef liver. And I've got another capsule that's liver and heart, I think. And so not very often, just when I feel, usually if I'm doing like a big workout or something, I'll just pop a couple of capsules, because the nutrient content in the liver, and you guys have to feel into this for yourselves, because there's a lot of like, don't eat the organs because of the like the whatever, you've got to feel into it for yourself. But like in every single nutrient that we learnt about when I was going through my degree, every single one of them, the thing that came up at the top as having the most of that in it was the liver. For everything. It has all of it in it in enormous amounts, and you can overdo it. So they talk about in the carnivore diet, because your need for a lot of vitamins and minerals is a lot less than someone that's really inflamed eating a Western diet. If you have too much liver, you can over-vitamin yourself, and it can be like a stress on the body. So it would be more like something that maybe you do once a week, maybe twice a week if you feel that you really need the extra nutrients, just because it is so nutrient dense. I don't think you need to eat the fucking brain. I only have my liver and heart capsules because of my heart, but I don't feel that I need that anymore. And I just have the liver capsules when I need it.
I just remember as a kid, like, it gives the butcher, you'd have the tongue.
Yeah, you eat all that. And you can, if you want to. I don't want to eat a fucking tongue, though. Like, I'm not there yet. maybe I'll build up to that, but it's up to you. It's up to you. Whatever your body tells you that it needs. Yes, Charlie. I know that there are some over this side of the room, but I can't turn my head that way fast enough.
Just fermented foods? And fermented veggies? That's
the other thing that I wanted to talk about. So with the carnivore diet, there are two strains of thinking. There are two ways of thinking here. There's the strict, clean carnivore, which maybe I should actually tell you a little bit more about what you shouldn't eat in that as well. And then there's this other strain of thought, and I haven't gone down this avenue yet because I've been feeling so fucking good with what I'm doing. I'm like, I will explore that when the time comes. But there's this other way of thinking that's carnivore plus fermented foods. Deb's like, oh, maybe I could actually do that. Because what happens when you ferment vegetables and you ferment fruits, it breaks down all of the phytotoxins. So all the oxalates are gone. It breaks down the oxalates. It breaks down the carbohydrates. It breaks down the sugars. So you end up with a form of veg that you can eat that doesn't have the toxic compounds, the carbohydrates and the sugars It does still have the fiber, but it's not an enormous amount of fiber. So there's a way of thinking that's like carnivore, but with every mouthful of meat, you have a little bit of something fermented.
Just one more question on the Lion diet. Are they having some sort of fatty meat?
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. So because all of your energy is coming from fat, you've got to make sure that the fat content is up. And that's different for everyone.
Yeah.
For a lot of women, especially with hormone issues, it needs to be like almost like a 70 to 30 ratio. And I don't mean 70% fat. I mean like 70% of your caloric intake is from fat compared to 30% from protein. And you're going to have more calories in fat than protein. So it would look like, it would still look like more protein than fat on the plate. Because fat is, especially for women, our hormones are fucking built out of fat. So for all of these women that have hormonal issues, they're fat deprived. And for some women, when they make the shift onto the carnivore diet as well, their body is so fat deprived that when the fat starts going in, it's just like, fucking give it to me, and holding on to it. And some women, even for like the first few months, will even put on a little bit of weight because their body is just so excited about the fat, and they're going through healing. So all that fat is like going in, and it's being used and being turned into hormones, and their periods come good, and they're getting a different shape. So women end up with like smaller waists and bigger hips, and like curvy in the way that they should be. And all of this stuff happens because, especially as women, we're so fucking fat deprived. For me, I wasn't, because that's been a really big focus for me, and my hormones have always been good. That's not an issue for me. But for like so many women, that is a really big thing. And so you have to find the amount of fat that works for you. For me, that took a little bit of trial and error. So you find the amount that works for you. So for me, I know that if I'm feeling lethargic, I'm not having enough fat. But I also know that if I'm starting to feel a bit sick, then I've had too much fat. But for my body now, my body tells me exactly how much it needs. So at every mealtime, I don't have to guess. Sometimes I want a really fucking fatty cut of meat. Sometimes I want a fucking shitload on the food that I'm eating. Sometimes I want really oily fish and I want a lot of it. Sometimes my body wants to include a bit more dairy, particularly at different times in the cycle. Sometimes it's like, fuck that shit. We want to go lean. We want to be powerful and keep it really clean. And I'm in tune with that. So I don't get that wrong anymore. I've learned that lesson, and my body has learned how to communicate with me how much fat it needs. But that would be something that we would figure out together, how much fat you need and how much fat you need for the healing process as well, because there's a lot of healing for some of you that would need to be done, and it's fat that does that. Protein too, but it's the fat, particularly the hormonal stuff, that's necessary in that. Yes? Yeah, so that's something else I wanted to touch on. So technically in the carnivore diet, it's all animal products, but you do want to be careful with cow's milk because it contains a lot of lactose. So there is a very strong way of thinking that we only need cow's milk and the lactose content in cow's milk when we're growing, and that makes sense to me. I've always felt that right from all the way through. I was like, it's fucking weird that we're taking something that's intended for baby cows to get them really fat and big, and we're eating it. So me, no milk, no cow's milk, unless I'm in a really desperate situation, like I'm here and all there is cow's milk. Then I'll put a bit of cow's milk in my tea if I have tea. We can talk about that too. So it's things that have that high lactose content. The lactose is sugar. It's sugar. But dairy products don't have the lactose content. So like things like kefir that have been fermented, the lactose has been fermented out of it. Things like yogurt that have been fermented, the lactose has been fermented out of it. That lactose isn't going to be present in cheeses, in sour cream, in yogurt. I said yogurt. Cream cheese is the other one I'm thinking of. Butter. Butter is just pure fucking fat, man. Like it is amazing. It is a whole food. It becomes your best friend. I love butter. So dairy products, but milk itself, no. And you have to find the amount of the dairy products that works well for you. Again, some people just shouldn't. Some people can't have dairy products at all. Some people just need to remove them, especially in autoimmunity. While you're healing, you may need to just remove dairy products because it's an extra load on the body and it's too much. Some people can include some. So it's always as a side. You don't have it on its own. It's like something that you have to complement the meat that you're eating, is the way that you got to look at dairy. But cow's milk, I just wouldn't. Especially because you can't get raw cow's milk here. If you could, then that would be a different story, because there's a lot more in that might actually be good for you and might make the lactose worth it. But in general,
Unless you've got a cow.
unless you got a cow. And eggs, go for it.
How many?
There are some people that eat 36 eggs a day, which I think is insane. There are some people that eat like a whole block of butter a day. Especially women with hormone issues. There's like this big thing that's like you should eat a whole block of butter a day to keep your hormones good. I don't do that, and I do not eat 36 eggs a day. I'm kind of like 3 eggs, 4 eggs, I'm real good. But that'll be different for everyone. Some people eat a dozen eggs a day. Some people will eat a fucking dozen egg omelette in one sitting with 20 pieces of bacon. It's like, whatever works for you, as long as it's within the thing of what's actually good for you, you just find what works.
I am so hungry.
Herbs and spices or herbal tea.
And that's another thing that would be up to you. Technically, no. Just salt, but because black pepper is high in oxalates as well, but white pepper, listen, white pepper is not as high in oxalates, so white pepper would be a better option for people who are really sensitive. And that's something else that I wanted to talk about actually is herbs as medicine, and we'll talk about that too. But yeah, it's all like, some people are really relaxed with it, some people aren't. You'd have to find what works best for your body and what you react to. Herbal tea. See, I thought that I would keep herbal tea in, but I haven't. Again, maybe we just talk about that now, herbs as medicine. So the thing, and this is another thing that excites me, because something that always kind of got to me in my studies is like, yeah, we use herbs for medicine, but it's like we're exposed to this shit all the fucking time. How medicinal can it be? What kind of impact can it really have, putting that much of something into the body that's like overloaded and full of all of that stuff all the time anyway? And something else that my body showed me was that when you remove that stuff completely from your diet, and you don't have those good phytochemicals going into the body all the time, then when you need it, you're going to be way, way, way more sensitive to it. So like if something gets infected, now with your current Western diet, you can try to use garlic to fix it, but you eat garlic all the fucking time. So the body's sensitivity is desensitized to the garlic. So the response of the garlic in the body is going to be massively diminished, and it's not going to have the therapeutic impact that it could have otherwise. But if you haven't eaten garlic for 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, and then something gets infected and you find yourself in a situation where you need something that's antimicrobial, you have a bit of garlic, how intense is your body's response to the garlic going to be? It's going to go straight to where it's needed. The effect of it is going to be felt through the whole body. It's actually going to be able to perform the role therapeutically that it can perform. So my way of seeing plants as medicine now is like, I'm going to be way, way, way more sensitive to it. So I'm going to need way, way, way less. I just use the plants when I need them. So when something's wrong, when something's unwell, or there's a big stress in the body or whatever else, and my reaction, my response to that is going to be so much more extreme than it was before. So the plants are actually going to be able to do their job when they're used therapeutically as medicine. rather than just being consumed all the time. I'm sensitized to the plants rather than being desensitized to them.